watching Roll for Crit. We are back in our homeland after a long week at Gen Con in Indianapolis, and this is a special news roundup themed all around news that came out during Gen Con that we didn't get a chance to cover, and then at the end of the show, we're also going to talk about our personal experiences with the show overall, how it fared this year.
Yeah, a lot of stuff happened, but not all of it was things literally at Gen Con. So we're going to give you that quick roundup first.
You're gonna like it.
Our Gen Con thoughts.
Two board game companies that previously existed are now going to be merging into one entity. Indie Boards and Cards and Stronghold Games, together with Action Phase Games, who previously became a part of Indie Boards and Cards as well, are now going to be under one umbrella called Indie Games. So there are going to be some shakeups in the management structure, but for the most part, nothing crazy. Stephen Bonacore is still going to be on board as the president of Stronghold. Indie Boards and Cards is going to have Travis Worthington as its CEO, as well as CEO of the Indie Games brand, but each of these companies are still going to be out there as separate brands on individual games. A quote from Travis Worthington was talking about how in this day and age they just can't really afford to keep their companies separate as much anymore, and by teaming up they're hoping to be able to better grow their brand and get their games out to a more populated group of people out there. So kind of a big deal, but it sounds like we're not really going to see too many changes from things. It sounds like, I'm guessing it's just going to be for the best. I think this is probably a good thing. I like these companies, and they're probably going to work together fairly well. Yeah.
Well, I think maybe short term. Long term, it's interesting because, first of all, if we start a news story with merger, you're probably like, oh, another Asmodee story.
That's right. They're not involved this time.
So what I'm curious is if we're actually just going to see all the board games sort of conglomerate into maybe something like the video game world where it's like Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft.
Right.
Which has its pros and cons. The pros being like, for example, like we talked about this, I don't think on the show. I think this is more of just on our trip to Gen Con actually, of how when they have E3, you know, Sony announces a bunch of different games, but how we don't think a board game company could really do that. But they could sort of do that now. But also, it also means if Sony or whatever big board game conglomerate doesn't like something, we see it affect a whole range of games, not just maybe like a few.
Right. No, you make a good point. It's something that if what they're saying is correct for other companies as well, it could be a trend that keeps going. And yeah, it could be kind of a scary thing. It could end up being in some ways a positive thing, in some ways not a positive thing, that there are a few larger companies as opposed to a bunch of smaller ones. But then of course on the other hand, you still have this kind of indie surge on Kickstarter. I guess sort of the same way you have that indie surge on Steam and video game world.
Well, we might actually see a bit from these companies. If they get big enough, they might have a much larger sort of department that's, instead of going to Kickstarter, you might just bring your game to them. Because it might be a lot easier, because as we've seen, we actually just, before Gen Con, we reported on multiple Kickstarters that turned out to be really bad. So this might be an alternative. But another interesting thing is mainly a few, but there are many games that sort of crossed over with a bunch of games, mainly, the first one that comes to mind is Munchkin. If that becomes absorbed into one of these properties, are we just not going to see Munchkin ever cross over into indie, for example, it went to Asmodee, similar how we'll never see Mario, you know, on Sony.
Yeah, I don't know. Right now, everybody seems to kind of play along with each other. Maybe in the future, all games will be subsets of Yellow's 8-bit box.
Except no crossplay.
No crossplay whatsoever.
Pandasaurus had a huge showing at Gen Con, from their Spiel des Jahres nominee, The Mind, to as well as a bunch of new games and Target exclusives, but they've decided that they don't want to stop there. They announced a new legacy game, the first legacy game I could think of in their lineup, Machi Koro Legacy. This actually was something they've been working on for a while, or at least trying to get off the ground. They've been constantly trying to contact Rob Devio, the original creator of Legacy, to make a game, but he wasn't really on until they had a good idea. But apparently he actually came up with one, and they're like, let's do this. So now there's going to be a new game. It's going to play like all other Legacy games in 10 rounds, and afterwards you can still play the game regularly, but it will be very unique. We've heard this with most of these new Legacy game styles. This reminds me a lot of Betrayal House on the Hill. I think it's a new style of Legacy where it's not specifically a story Legacy where you're just done, sort of like Risk Legacy. I feel like you have the map and you're finished, but more of you're going to customize your game, but it's going to be customized by the choice you make during those previous rounds. It's interesting. I've played a lot of Machi Koro. It sort of makes sense in sort of building some buildings and seeing what comes around, but the way Machi Koro works with cards, I don't know how well it will work. Like in SimCity, yeah, that makes sense, Legacy, but like when you start a new game, are you restarting from scratch? Like,
yeah, it's definitely not the first thing that I would think of for. That would make a great Legacy game. And clearly it wasn't for them either because, apparently he just had some epiphany of, oh, I know how this can work now. Which makes me, think, okay, Rob Devio, he's a great designer. He knows his way around the Legacy games. He probably does have a good idea.
We should note that they did get the original Japanese designer Machi Koro on as well.
Right.
So that's got approval, which is a good sign. And the artist, which is, I feel like that is actually almost as important because it does have a unique look.
Yeah.
And that would have been.
So that's cool. I mean, I'm definitely, interested. I have faith that it'll probably be a good game, and the trend where you can replay them, I think that's smart and a good way to go forward from now on with these games. I do think we are now really starting to hit the tipping point of, I think I'm about to get sick of Legacy games.
Well, I think you and I are just with campaigns in general because it's hard for us to do that.
It's a hard sell, but I think it's, I mean, I don't want to say the thing that we always say, but I think it's the next thing that people are going to just be like, oh my God, the word Legacy.
Right.
Good for you.
I will say, Pandasaurus, as I said, they had a great showing, and I mean, the Dinosaur Island, which we loved, it was on our list for last year. The Mind game is interesting. We actually did get to play that a little bit. We'll probably talk a little later.
Yeah.
And there's also the other game, the Blind one, which we're very excited to try. We haven't yet.
Nyctophobia.
We will shortly. I want to make sure he said it so I didn't mispronounce it.
Yeah, so they got a good track record. We'll see. One of our most anticipated showings at Gen Con this year was Restoration Games with Dinosaur Tea Party and the demo for Fireball Island. They also announced their next big project that they are going to be restoring Dark Tower, a board game from way back in the day that is now going to be called Return to Dark Tower, appropriately enough. This original game involved an electronic computerized tower in the center of a board that had different messages and images appear on it, and you would interact with that tower in order to play the game. There's a great old trailer featuring Orson Welles that maybe we'll show a little bit of right now. You can get an idea of what it looks and feels like. The new one, we have very limited information on it, but we do know it is going to be developed by Rob Devio, who we just mentioned in our last story, along with Isaac Childress, who just is hot off the heels of Gloomhaven. So huge pedigree to this game. Maybe the two biggest designers in the industry right now working on it together, which is crazy. And it is also going to be a cooperative game, which the original one was not. So they are tweaking that. And they have said they aren't going to be using an app. They really want to focus on making the tower itself, keeping the electronic aspect in that thing.
And I think actually one of the reasons they got those designers is because of Restoration Games. We've seen them just come through with high quality and not just like, oh, let's just quickly reprint this. Because I'm sure some of those games have a flaw and they could. But they actually tweak it enough. So these designers know that they're going in not to just make a quick version of it, but to make a good game of it.
Yeah.
So definitely really exciting from us, even though I never played that game.
You looked at a little bit of it. Did you kind of see the look?
Yeah, I've seen the look and a little bit, but I'm like not really experienced with the game. But
right.
I mean, anytime I hear Restoration, I've already looked at the Tea Party. I'm very excited to play that as well. And Fireball Island, I mean, yes. Since we first heard about it, we've been excited. I mean,
it sounds like a win on all fronts. Those designers, the company, two things I love, the electronic integration with the game, the fact that it's co-op now, and it's going to be presumably really thematic and weird. It sounds right up our alleys. Not, unfortunately, based on the Dark Tower book series, which was what I first thought. I was like, what? No relation to that.
But maybe, if this turns out well, we can see if Restoration Games would do one game that we think could use a little work. An old game we like to play every Halloween.
Oh, 1313 Dead End Drive?
Yes.
Or Nightmare, I guess.
That would be, I would like to see them try to tackle that one.
Yeah.
Also, though, each one's a different designer, and they're the person who's on the TV. Now, if you were following us through our videos or Instagram, you may have already heard about the new Horizon Zero Dawn game announced from Steamforged. These are actually the guys who do Guild Ball, but what you've probably heard more is the Dark Souls board and card game. Now, what's interesting about this is apparently they've been working very closely with Guerrilla Games, and this is actually canon to the video game. It will actually take place afterwards, I think after the DLC as well as said, and it's sort of a hunting challenge in which your characters are going to sort of hunt smaller robots, which is interesting because I think this is the first time we've seen a board or video game really say like, oh, this is part of the story.
Yeah.
This is interesting cross. Now, some people are a little bit iffy because I think there are other stuff, and also we've played the Dark Souls board game. And while we found the boss combat to be really fun and interesting, we thought the grind beforehand was a little...
Yeah, wasn't crazy about Dark Souls board game. I have heard great things about the Resident Evil 2 board game, which we didn't get a chance to try. That was for demo at Gen Con as well, and I've heard really good buzz about that, so that's encouraging. But as I have yet to play Horizon Zero Dawn, although I really want to. You're a big fan.
Yeah, I'm in that. I enjoyed it more than Breath of the Wild, so feel free to hate on me now for saying that.
Oh man, why are you inviting these flames at us?
So I'm very curious though, because to me, part of the reason I love that is the world and building it. And while I think the robots are beautiful, and I'm almost happy to get it just for the minis. This is one of those few times I'm happy just for minis.
The one mini?
The mini. Well, that wasn't the smallest thing announced at the biggest thing announced at Gen Con.
It's not. It's about an eighth of the size of the Cthulhu one from Simon.
Well, I was thinking about the new Star Wars ship.
Oh, that too. Oh boy.
But this sounds like the hunting. I mean, it could be cool for a little bit, but is it really Zero Dawn? Is it really get to capture that story of the world or the idea behind it?
Yeah, right. I know the exploration is such a big part of that game, so
like I can understand if it had sort of an RPG feeling to, like not RPG, tabletop RPG feeling to it. But as far as I assume, it sound like almost is going to play a Dark Souls, like you hunt the little guys over and over again until you had enough to hunt the big one. And I assume, hopefully, we'll see like the big bird, the Stormbringer, and some of the other big guys that are in the game. But we'll see how it goes. I'll probably still, like I said, because the minis, I love the design of the characters. We do need to play Dark Souls a bit more, but it is one of those things where the grind, I hope it doesn't have that grind.
Yeah, I'm hoping they've learned from that feedback, and this is going to be on Kickstarter. So yeah, you'll be able to see what it looks like, at least, before you put your dollars into it.
Next up, they'll get the God of War line.
Oh, that'd be fun. Renegade Game Studios has announced that they got the rights to put out a board game based on a license that's near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. Power Rangers is getting a tabletop game from them. It's for 2 to 5 players, and it's a cooperative experience. We don't know a lot about it yet, although by the time you're watching this video, it will be on Kickstarter, if not very, very in the near future. And we know you're going to be playing as those Rangers. You're going to get to use Zords, and it's going to include a bunch of villains in the base set, including Rita Repulsa and those putties. There's also going to be a Shattered Dimensions expansion that takes some stuff from the comic book. And you will know a lot more about Power Rangers than I do. So have you read any of these comics?
Some of them, not like...
You know the lore, though.
Yeah, I know the villain in the expansion is actually an evil version of Tommy that's sort of a fusion of the green and white Ranger, so you know.
And it looks like this base set is definitely focusing on the classic, the original, at least American version.
Because I think that's everyone's favorite. Like the comic series has only been then. I don't even know if they brought in the other Rangers, which would be interesting because, their anniversary was literally about the team being able to turn to any Ranger from any team, including the ones that aren't technically American, which they gave weird names to. Kind
of similar to Transformers, there's a lot of weird lore and stuff they could use if they wanted to.
Right. I do think that's one of the nice things. There's plenty to pull from, and I hope they do with it. I hope the game does well, so they will do that. I mean, the monsters are hilarious. They have your favorite,
Pudgy Pig.
Yeah. And some of the Zords could be really cool. And this is interesting because we do know, I believe Power Rangers Hasbro just got the rights.
That is true, yeah.
So I'm curious, have they made a deal with Renegade afterwards and you just do the game, which is then a sign of will Hasbro do this with some of their other stuff? Instead of just we'll make the Transformers or G.I. Joe game, first 2 properties I can think of from them, but instead maybe give it to, which is a great sign then, because I love you, Hasbro, but I don't think your games will compete with what many people think are top of the Board Game Geek list games.
I don't think so either. No, I was really happy about this announcement because I love Renegade Game Studios, and from all the companies that could have gotten Power Rangers and how easily a cash grab that could be, I'm really excited that it's a co-op game. There's really cool looking minis in there.
And the expansion is a great sign because while it's something I know about, it's not going to be something like the average person who watched Power Rangers, back when they're 5 to know about.
Yeah,
so.
there are, this isn't just for the casual viewer. They're really appealing to fans. Get some Lord Zed in there, though. What about
later?
Ivan Ooze?
Oh, we're going to go to that. It'll actually be an ooze. It won't be a miniature. Just think of...
Ew.
Yeah. It was announced that Eric Lang would be working on another board game for CMON. This one actually based on the Bloodborne series. They actually already have one that's a Bloodborne card game, which we have played. But this is actually a board game with miniatures. Probably no surprise after following their Cthulhu Kickstarter that did very well. Also, Eric Lang is one of our favorites. I know early on, he was one of the first names I remember you always saying.
Yeah, I mean, he pumps out more games than seem to be humanly possible. And almost all the time we played them, they're usually pretty high quality.
Yeah, even the card game, for this, we really like. It's a quicker version of the sort of backstab, almost
Cutthroat Cavern-esque.
So I don't know if story-wise that game followed very well, but mechanically it was really fun. So maybe this is where they can pull from the lore, because I do know there's a lot of interesting stuff. It actually makes sense because apparently a lot of Bloodborne is Lovecraftian. So it only seems like a great fit for the board game to have a Dark Souls game.
Just natural. Yeah, neither of us have played the video game, but that card game was fun. It was surprisingly fun. It is a little funny, like both Dark Souls and Bloodborne have a board game and a card game from two different companies.
Except they went the reverse way.
Yeah, it is like I wonder what the decision making is, and I wonder if it's challenging for them to market both those games at the same time.
Well, I think my idea of why I think the Dark Souls one was like they made the miniatures game because miniatures sell, and maybe people were like a little unsure because also the price point for people new, so that's when they made the card game. And I think CMON saw that right off the bat, so they're like, we'll make this card game, because video game players probably, they're very iffy on price, so they haven't been in the board game industry. They might not know like, oh, this is a great price for a board game with miniatures or not. Right. It's a good, and test the waters as well.
They ramped you up. Not to be outdone by the physical realm, Asmodee Digital announced a couple of new adaptations of games that they've got coming out for PC and perhaps other platforms, including a digital version of Munchkin, but probably more interesting to most of our viewers, a digital version of Gloomhaven. This is said to not exactly be an exact adaptation of the physical version of the game, but instead kind of a video game-ized version of it, where there's actually going to be, among other modes, a roguelike mode that you can play over and over again. And we've got a little bit of a teaser that showed some of the graphics, but other than that, we really don't know exactly what it's going to look and feel like, but presumably it will hold the same kind of hex-based, turn-based combat that the board game had, but it sounds like it's not going to just take that campaign. There's probably going to be a brand new campaign to go along with it that the original designer is also helping to design for them. So Gloomhaven, very controversial discussion for us on this channel, but I think, as you were saying, that maybe this video game version could solve some of the issues that we felt with the original tabletop version.
Right. Well, first of all, if they do enough, it could be different. Like, it's not just, it's the digital translation. It's actually a video game. And this definitely feels like that kind of game because, as we said, this reminds us of just someone's D&D campaign. But that also means that there's a heavy world built in and races and creatures, so the lore is already there, which is something that's very big, at least for me, that I like games that sort of drip that. That's my favorite part. Like
love those drips.
Yeah. When you go and find the weird hidden stuff and stories behind the world, not just killing as many things as you can.
Right.
And another big thing is that this would make it a lot easier for solo players.
Very easy. You're going to sit down, you're going to play it. You don't need to get people together every week for the next 3 years to finish this 100-hour campaign.
Also less shelf space.
A lot less shelf space. Yeah, they haven't mentioned details as to whether it would even have a multiplayer mode. I'm actually not sure if it will. So that's kind of interesting. It is going to have an early access period. I'm not sure when exactly that's going to start, but I think it's maybe not till early next year, 2019. So we'll see how that plays out.
Now, have they said anything about also what systems it'll be on?
So far, just Steam.
Just Steam.
Just Steam,
okay.
yeah. But I think that's kind of where they're focusing. It seems like Asmodee Digital, they're still just kind of dipping their toes in the console realm. So we'll see if they expand beyond that. But pretty cool and probably going to be a big hit. And I wonder, it seems like this could really spread into the mainstream. Gloomhaven could become a name known by non-board game players, you know, if it's successful.
Yeah, if they do it really well, that would definitely bridge that kind of gap. And in a really interesting way, too, because they'll be like, oh, there's a board game. Oh, it was #1 from everyone's list.
Yeah.
And then they'll be confused and be like, why is this more than $60? Like, you know.
Yeah.
Where's the Steam sale for the board game?
Less setup time, too.
Oh, yeah. So as we said, that was some of the sort of news stuff that was sort of announced at Gen Con, but really didn't have too much there. There was maybe a few miniatures or box art, but best for news. But we did see plenty of other things. One of the cool things, of course, we went to a Paizo meeting. They talk about stuff they already have out now, as well as some of their new stuff, including a new Armory book, which was for sale. We didn't get
Starfinder.
For Starfinder, right. Yes. We didn't get the chance to pick that up, but they also announced a new another Alien Archive book, which is really cool in particular because those you can actually play a lot more of the races, which is awesome.
So it's like a monster manual / player handbook.
Right, which is really great because anyone who grew up with Star Trek, any of those, knows that it's not just humans on those ships.
It's not just humans, man. Represent.
But they also announced that they're sort of doing the special storyline in Starfinder a little different. They're actually going to sort of have very different themes, including one that's going to be horror themed, and then the next one's more fantasy themed, which I really loved. It was I think they believe an Efrit decides to take over the sun.
Yeah, it's like, that's pretty good.
So we'll see how those turn out.
You know, for people who like Starfinder but want a fantasy theme, if only there were a game that had that.
Speaking of which, they talked about their 2.0, which as of now should be free online for you to check out. They do have a hardcover book.
Yeah, the Pathfinder 2.0 playtest, which they launched at the show. You can get the PDF. They had special editions there that were cool. It was really exciting to hear them talk about it. They're clearly passionate about the changes that they've made, and it sounds like a lot of the things they've talked about, not having yet experienced it firsthand myself, it honestly sounds like even playing D&D 5th edition, which is streamlined in itself, especially when he talks about combat, how now there's like 3 actions that you do during combat. It's much easier and simpler, and I'm kind of thinking, yeah, I wish 5th edition, I want them to take that, even though it's already pretty simple. I want it even, it sounds like they're really making it super easy, which I like, because especially in combat, I feel like I tend to feel bogged down by a lot of those rules.
I guess there's a few rules, and I don't know if they either cleared that. I mean, in D&D,
I think a lot of it is because there's like 6 things you can do that we just forget about because they're more complicated.
There's a couple, it's just like grapples,
like hiding, and I mean, cover's pretty easy, but there's just a lot of stuff to keep in the back of your mind.
I mean, I don't think it's too bad, and we'll have to see, because I know what my character would do anyways, regardless, and then if I don't, be like, is this an option? But the big thing for me with Pathfinder, one of the reasons we haven't done it is, I think, partly because it was like 30 books in and stuff, and knowing that's so there's a lot more stuff to it. It's a very big wall.
It's dense.
So by reducing the rules and starting over, a lot more people can jump in now.
Right. It's a good time to start fresh. Yeah.
Which is what we're probably going to do.
Which is good for us. Yeah. No.
I mean, I did buy the core rulebook right before they announced it, but
yeah. No. That's pretty cool. It was fun to hear them talk about that, and maybe since it's free, we should probably try it and maybe talk about it on the show. So that was probably. There was also some weird controversy that occurred at Gen Con this year.
Oh yeah, 2 things.
2 major things. One of which was at Gen Con, which was the Yellow COO, Steven Brissot, who we've met. I believe we've actually interviewed him on our channel once or twice, like a couple years ago. Apparently had kind of a moment where he lost his temper when trying to unload things before the show started.
Yeah, usually you can have a forklift to help move things in, but unfortunately I think, I don't know why, but their stuff was late for Yellow, so they couldn't use the forklift because the carpet was already down, and some security stopped him saying, where's his badge, and I think it's just a lot of things built up.
Yeah, and he reacted badly and they kicked him out, I think, right?
Yeah, I believe that's the case.
And I think he has commented saying, he overreacted and I think he apologized for it. Nothing, like nobody was hurt or anything, but it's just weird because, Gen Con is the last place you expect to hear about that kind of thing. But it goes even beyond that because then off-site at a bar, I don't remember where it is, but nearby Gen Con, there was a guy whose name I wrote down because I had never heard of him before, Jeremy Hambley. Were you familiar with this guy? No, who has a YouTube channel called The Quartering that I guess has some controversial viewpoints that I'm honestly not sure what they are, but it sounds like maybe vaguely sexist, racist. I don't know. I'll just say whatever I want. And he apparently was, according to him, punched repeatedly, assaulted by a Gen Con attendee, actually a guy named Matt Fantastic, who is a game designer, who has had games at the show, such as Before There Were Stars, which was one of the big ones. Punched him because he disagreed with his views. This was outside of Gen Con, didn't take place on the grounds. There's also some reports that some people don't even believe him. I think he made this up. There's a lot of he said, she said kind of stuff going on. So it's a very, I don't really know how I feel about it all other than that's crazy that happened. I don't really have a stance, a pro-con stance because we've been so busy. I honestly just haven't had time. I don't really want to take my headspace up with that, to be honest. But
we have a lot of games to learn. We don't have time.
Yeah, but it is crazy that both, it just seems like this year was whoa, what? Something's in the water,
That's true, but
in our whole country.
I feel comparative to all the other nerdy conventions that's been happening before Gen Con, this is pretty tame. I feel like we got away with not nearly.
Could have been a lot worse, for sure. And again, the fact that it didn't actually take place on the convention of grounds, that's a plus. But yeah, I've seen a lot of reaction of people being like, oh, Gen Con's not safe anymore and all this stuff. And it's just a big excuse for people to fight. It's really crazy. I mean, I definitely don't endorse punching.
Mostly because he can't punch back.
That's right. Please don't punch me.
I don't think you have to worry about Gen Con not being safe anymore. No more than any other convention. I mean, but once you leave Gen Con, you're in a city. So expect what you would expect in any major city. There's
a barroom brawl, it can happen. It's Indianapolis. It's the dark, mean streets of Indy.
Oh yeah,
it's real crazy out there. There were also some mishaps. There's something else going out in the water.
Oh yeah.
First was Arboretum. The new edition of Arboretum
which I purchased.
Yeah, they had a little misprint on the back of those cards. They misspelled the word Arboretum. It says Arboretum,
which means I'm going to play this game a lot with Jonathan.
Yeah, it's really exciting to be able to enjoy that typo every time you play, unless you sleeve those cards. There was another one, actually. I don't know if you heard about this one. Not as bad, but pretty bad. The X-Files Legendary Encounters set.
Which you bought.
Which I bought. On a bunch of the cards in that game, they printed the Marvel logo on the back of the cards. However, and because this is part of the Marvel Legendary series, but it's not supposed to have that logo, especially because, you want to be able to mix these cards together, and the Marvel logo isn't on all of them. So if you're not sleeving them, you're going to maybe know which cards are coming up sometimes.
It's not a typo.
It's a conspiracy.
No. Marvel and Disney just got Fox stuff. They got X-Files. X-Files confirmed to be part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe now.
It could be. I mean, fortunately for us, I sleeve all the Legendary cards, so it's not an issue. But
really, you should be sleeving any of the deck building game.
But it's pretty bad for Upper Deck because it sounds like they maybe knew about this, or at least knew about it early on, and still continued to sell it at the show.
Can we a small side point, at least for me?
Yeah.
Really disappointed with Upper
Decks, their booth.
This, the years before, they had the Predator and Chinatown. They even had the truck, and they had X-Files, what could have been such a cool booth.
Yeah.
And they had the same beach thing from the Shark game that was up 50% off.
They're really letting us down. They didn't do Buffy last year either. They're missing these opportunities.
Also, I know all the love. We also got the cinematic Legendary box, which is
which is pretty rough, which wouldn't look that bad. This is based on the movie, so it uses stills, which, I can get past that. I get it. But they decided to put the logos.
For stills, they are pretty good.
For stills, they're pretty good. They put the logos of each individual movie, so if it's a screenshot from Thor, it says Thor, and not in the corner, in the middle of the card.
Well, and then the other thing, which is, for me, a big problem, a lot of the cards are the same variant of their cards, but there are maybe someone it's a same mechanically but different name henchman group, which I'm fine with. To me, that's new. But the fact that the new stuff is in there, it's almost like it's like if I want new stuff, I do need to get it, but a lot of it's old. I wish they went completely, all either completely reprint or not.
I agree. I mean,
then the final thing, which we laughed at, the box says phase, was it phase one?
Phase one. It only includes stuff from phase one of the movies, but on the box and instruction booklet, it's plastered with phase 2 and 3 characters.
Yeah, we were looking at it, we're like, is Black Panther in this?
Is someone at the quality control at Upper Deck just asleep? I don't really know.
Which is impressive because you think Disney would be on them on their cinematic one.
They also announced, though, on the plus side, their next small box for the main Legendary core set is going to be Ant-Man. That's confirmed.
Finally.
Yeah, so
Ant-Man will be making it into the game before cinematic Ant-Man.
They got it just under the wire, so that's exciting at least.
Is that the only thing they announced at their secret party? Because it occurred to me just now.
I did not hear about what their next big set is going to be, not in the Marvel universe.
Right.
No, so I don't know if they announced that. I didn't see that. But.
I mean, I'm still hoping that they get Transformers.
Okay.
And that is fine to have Marvel on it because they did cross over. There is an anti-Transformer Iron Man outfit. So that can be in the game.
If it was going to continue from they did Buffy and X-Files, if they did another 90s show, what do you think they could get?
Conan and what's her name?
Wait, who? What did you say?
I said Conan.
Conan?
No, it's Hercules, not Conan. Wow. Hercules.
I was like, O'Brien?
Yeah.
Late night?
They should.
Xena?
Yeah, Xena and Hercules.
That's okay. Yeah, I like that. It's a pretty good fit.
And if they really want to piss off people, She-Ra, except it's a new version.
yeah, they should definitely do that. There were a bunch of things that we talked about. If you haven't seen our channel over the past week, we put out 20 plus videos with interviews and stuff. There weren't many games, honestly, I think that we played that we didn't do a video on. One of the ones you mentioned was The Mind, which we got to play.
That one we actually did outside because I bought it. It was definitely really interesting. It's something we want to try again because we do think we did it in a public place because I was like, I'll bring it along. It can fit. But I want to try it in a more quiet place.
It's a weird one.
It's definitely weird. It's definitely also, what's the phrase, a Spiel des Jahres game?
Yeah, it's also kind of not a game. It kind of makes you question, what is the definition of a game? It's very philosophical almost kind of thing.
I'm fine with that, partly because it's smaller. I mean, also because when a lot of people bring that up with video games, I like those video games when people...
If you don't know, in The Mind, you're supposed to play cards with numbers in the right order, but without discussing it or gesturing or making any kind of indication. You just play when you think it's right with each other. So to me, it felt like something you would find in a museum gift shop, like a weird, next to the Rubik's Cube and the puzzles. It's kind of like that kind of thing, which is cool. Is there anything we bought that you're really looking forward to trying out?
Well, obviously, the other game from Pandasaurus we talked about, the one you put on the
Nyctophobia, right?
Which I'm still having him pronounce for me. I mean, I've read through almost everything I've bought.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
I think Ultimate Werewolf Legacy might be the most I really want to see how that works.
I'm excited because we just happen to have the perfect amount of people for that.
Yeah, you need at least 9 players, so we might get a full 16 out of that one.
I think we will have,
which is scary.
But I mean, I looked at the DC deck building game, not DC, the new Crisis one, which is interesting. I'm also a fan of Titans, so seeing a lot of those heroes in there was pretty cool. The Smash Up box and the Scythe box, I did unpack everything and put in there. I am missing one Scythe expansion. I didn't get the insert. But it was really cool, and the Scythe expansion looks really cool because it's actually a campaign, it seems, with maybe some new stuff. I don't want to say too much, because I did have to see some things unpacking it and putting it into the box.
Got it. Yeah, that's exciting.
The Smash Up one, I guess we'll do a video on the box and a review of it, but it's definitely had some interesting choices. But a lot of the new games are really like not the island. I'm just blanking.
Forbidden Sky.
Forbidden Sky has this really cool mechanic where you actually the ship is on these sort of magnets, has batteries in it, but you have to complete a circuit, and it lights up. So you actually have this really cool, fun mechanic. It seems like a light, but like a really fun game we'd have together.
That's exciting.
It's just a lot of these games seem like I'm really excited about the one game you got. The star one that we actually mentioned before about the designer who might have may or may not punch someone.
Before there were stars,
Yes.
which I actually got as a gift for somebody. Spoilers.
And you also got Root, which is the other big game, which actually sold out there.
Yeah, Root, really excited to try that one out. I picked up a couple of Kickstarters that I had backed, including the Big Score from Van Ryder. And let me tell you, this is a heist game, and when you see the components, you're going to be real excited to play it, because you've got like gems and money, and there's like a bank you reach into. It looks cool.
You know I love me a good heist. And
Yeah.
the other game I'm really excited about, and I'm probably going to purchase when I get the chance. I don't think it was there for sale, or maybe I just assumed not, and
We could've missed it.
was Gizmo.
Gizmos, yeah.
I really enjoyed that because I don't
think it's out yet, no.
It's an engine building game. I mean, we talked about it in the video, but I love that sort of stuff when you build something because you still feel like you did something even if you lose. And that container holding the marbles is so cool.
Well, so what do you think? Do you have a game of show for you? Or?
The game of show.
And limited to demos on the floor that we played. What did you enjoy the most? If you can narrow it down to one.
I think if I could narrow it down.
I don't know what mine is either.
I know I do have my regret not having to play.
Well, let's start with that. Yeah, what are your biggest disappointments?
I saw Everdale, I believe was the name.
Everdell, yeah.
I saw it, but it was so crowded. I'm like getting a chance every time. But
for me and you as well, it's one that we didn't. There was no chance because it wasn't there, which was the Aliens game.
That's the other,
which we both said was our most anticipated to play, and they didn't have it, which was sad. From Gale Force 9.
I guess I put Everdale above because I could. Like that one was actually on me.
Yeah,
and a small one, we didn't get to play. This is also, I guess, a runner-up. But I guess for me, it was actually the Cryptozoic game.
Pantone?
Yeah, I think that was one of the games that I think fits us for that sort of fun coloring.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to try
it. It turns out it's a lot more creative because I thought it was just put the cards in the line, like red, black, blue.
Right.
But it seems you can arrange them. So like if you had Professor Layton, you could make a top hat.
This is the game where you get people to guess characters based on just colors.
Which I think you could have a lot of, especially if you have a very nerdy group, you could just have a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was something I wanted to try. There was another one too from Mondo Games. They had the new Fight Club game was out for demo. We didn't get the chance to try that, but I've been loving their stuff, and that had a really cool design.
But enough of us stalling as long as we could. What was your number one?
Number one game. Honestly, it's hard. I'm trying to think of what did I really enjoy. I mean, we talked a lot about in our videos, but definitely the biggest splashes were Keyforge and Arkham. I mean, those were Fantasy Flight didn't disappoint. They usually have the craziest games, and those definitely.
I was a little afraid you were going to say that because I'm honestly like Arkham's probably mine.
Yeah.
Because for me,
it's an easy pick.
I have all of them. And seeing them make a new edition that's actually different made me happy. And it's one of those games like I always feel bad. In fact, one of my early game horrors in my memory, in my mind, is when I was like, let's play Arkham Horror. And I didn't think about how long of that game. It was like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at a game night. And forced people. And I felt, ever since then, I've been so ashamed of myself for not thinking ahead about playtime hours. That's one of the things I think a lot now.
Maybe you won't have to worry as much now.
That's the thing. I don't. And I think it's going to feel different too. So it's not like, oh, why don't we just play Eldritch Horror? It's what you actually say a lot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'll cheat and just say detective. Even though we already played it before the show, you know what? No, it's still my game of show.
I think that counts because it was the big thing for. I think it was It was in the top
number one for. I don't know if it was the whole show, but for a while it was.
I know. I checked yesterday. It was still on there. I don't think it was number one. I think something else took it, if I recall.
Yeah, but
I believe it was actually the Scarab game.
Oh yeah, Scarabia, which we will probably do a review for soon.
But I'm also really excited for that. We always say how we love those detective story-like games, so that seems like a small one, which I guess for some people might have been new, but if you backed it, you had a chance to play. I can't wait to get it because you have them all. But those books.
Right, the graphic novel Adventures, also from Van Ryder, that they premiered at the show. I had my copies from Kickstarter. I've been playing through some of them, and I love them. They're really cool. They're really fun. They're choose-your-own-adventure books.
I've been wanting to look over your shoulder, but I'm like, I can't spoil anything.
Well, I'm gonna give them to you. I finished the werewolf one. I've been playing the Sherlock Holmes one, which you're gonna love.
Now, have they been good so far?
Yeah, no, they're very cool, and the two that I've played are very different too. You know, like Werewolf one was much more like an RPG. The Sherlock Holmes one is almost like an extension of the consulting detective game.
We should also mention another cool thing I love that you found out that they had bookmarks at the convention you picked up for it.
Yeah.
So you can actually track your character, not only page, but the stats on the bookmark.
And those are, I believe, on their website. You can print them out, too, so you can get those to use if you weren't there at the show. So, I mean, there was so much cool stuff. I'm also excited to try out. I picked up some of the new North Star games, like Most Wanted, and the new Say Anything, which I'm sure is going to be really funny to play with our group of friends. I mean, there was a ton. The Exodus, we already said Roots. So many good, the X-Files Legendary game, definitely anticipating that. I'm hoping it's cool.
Oh, and of course, one of the things I'm most excited about, which I'm surprised it took me so long to mention, is the Transformers card game.
Yeah.
I actually just found out the sleeve size. Apparently, there already is a sleeve that perfectly fits those large cards. I was amazed.
They thought of everything.
Not by them.
Oh, not by them.
But Ultra Pro did announce that there will be Transformers products, I think October, they said. And I did talk to Ultra Pro about Drop Mix, because that's, I know, one of our favorite games from last year.
Yeah.
And that should be next month with their products. So that's a big thing.
I'm getting ready. I want to sleeve all my cards with their cool.
No, because we have
sleeves.
noticed. But I do love that game.
It's really good.
So that's one I'm really excited about, because right now, technically, I have one deck. Like, I could split it with the starter set and stuff, but really I want to. The Transformers, I really want to actually be able to make it so each person could have their own deck. And I want to see if I could do some weird combos based on, like, I happen to get a lot of Insecticon cards with the promo stuff they handed out. So we'll see what they can do.
Yeah, I'm excited to try and actually play that more and get a better handle on it, definitely.
Yeah, because it didn't seem too complicated, but you can still seem to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There already is a subreddit just for it.
Hey, they move fast.
I was amazed. I was like, okay, I'm following.
Any other final things you want to talk about?
I guess a small one I enjoyed, because we talked a long time ago about like what would be cosplayers actually board gamey. And I actually saw this person before I saw photos online of this, of someone who is doing the Magic the Gathering character Deathrite Shaman, I believe is the name, who just got banned. So she had a sign on her back that said, "Unban me." And then apparently later they got photos of her getting dragged out of the Magic area by judges. So
pretty good. I think my personal favorite was Gizmo from Gremlins, but dressed as like a samurai or
he was wearing like a hat. Or,
some kind of Eastern outfit.
He's now back on the shelf behind Jonathan.
But it was like a giant, like, quality-looking gizmo. Like, it looked like a professional human-sized suit. Very crazy. Yeah, they had a lot of cool cosplays like that. It was fun. And people that were at the show came up to us and yelled out, "Hey, you're from Roll for Crit." One person said jokingly that we suck for not liking Gloomhaven, which we loved. That was great. So really, thank you if you're one of those people, or if you're somebody that we interviewed and talked to. Really appreciate that.
I actually remember just another thing. It was at Gen Con, and I think people could buy it. Yeah, people could buy it, and I don't know if they had it for demo, but actually from Everything Epic Games is their new Como Award. The reason we didn't try, because it's one of those games like Detective where you don't want to know anything going in. So I will be hopefully receiving that soon. And I just realized, because that's one I'm very excited about. Once again, any of those hidden story and unraveling, you and I are just like, yes, feed it to us.
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff. So there's more that I bought that I haven't mentioned, but we can't go into it all. If you were not at Gen Con, though, you still have a chance to get some of those hot games thanks to us.
Yeah.
We're running a contest until the end of August. There are going to be 3 winners, and in order, you'll get to choose one of 3 games. There's only one of each, so you'll have to, while supplies last. Those games are Detective, which I said, my game of show, Forbidden Sky, another big hotness, and then War Chest, which is one of the big new games from AEG, which is a 2-player battle game.
Or 4. It's one.
Or 4. Okay, yeah. So some great options there. We're gonna have a link in the description below, but it's bit.ly/RFC giveaway.
Just click the link down below. It's the Gleam that which we've used for our contest before.
But if that's also just in case RFC is capitalized and so is the G. Just in case you're on the audio version or something and you want to check it out right now. So that's enter that contest. It's easy, very exciting.
We're gonna have a lot more videos. Probably most of this month will be, instead of news, it'll be us actually probably reviewing a lot of the games that were at the show and talking about our thoughts on them.
Yeah, the next couple weeks schedule might be a little off because we're really busy, we're doing different things, we're vacationing part of the time, but stay tuned.
We say vacation, but really we have a large gathering of people where we can use an excuse to play Werewolf Legacy.
As they say, when you do what you love, you're always kind of working. So we'll be bringing some of that to you. So it may be more sporadic, but definitely going to be working on some more like concrete reviews of some of these games from Gen Con.
But of course, don't forget to leave your comments down below and subscribe.
If you were at the show, let us know what your game of show was.
Right. What games you would want us to see, of course, review. We're going to try to hit all the ones we bought, but maybe if there's one in particular, like I can't think of any because I don't want to say anything and then have us not do that one in the beginning. So definitely let us know. Of course, follow us on the other places because, as we said, we had a lot of different photos of like the Power Rangers or the Horizon Dawn.
Yeah, check out Instagram,
on
for
Instagram
sure.
and stuff. But until then, I'm Will.
And I'm Jonathan.
And this has been our Gen Con 2018 special from Roll for Crit.
Hey, if you like what you saw, don't forget to subscribe and like this video for more excellent board game content.
Heck yeah!